A non-governmental organization, Rising Child Foundation, has joined organizations seeking an end to gender-based violence in Kwara State and Nigeria in particular. Speaking at a press conference, the convener, Comrade Aisha, highlighting several cases of gender-based violations that occur in the country and in Kwara State to be precise, calling for concerted efforts from all stakeholders to put an end to the menace. Aisha gave a brief statistics of prevalent records of gender-based violence, which she said is the reason for Rising Child Foundation coming out in collaboration with members of the society for increased awareness on this menace and put an end to it or reduce it to the barest minimum.
Gentlemen of the press, I thank you for honoring our invitation, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the launching of our Kwara Gender-Based Violence project tagged Stamp Out GBV in Kwara. In the past few years, there's been a spotlight on the growing cases of gender-based violence in different parts of the globe, making it one of the most prevalent human rights issues worldwide. Sadly, GBV cases are becoming more rampant in many African societies, including Nigeria, with little or no consequences for the perpetrators. Cases of gender-based violence abound in every part of the country. In fact, due to the prevalence of violence against women and girls in Nigeria, the federal government was in 2020 forced by activists to declare a state of emergency on GBV. This was after a series of cases of violence against women sparked protests online and offline. Almost every day, we read or hear stories of victim survivors of GBV in the media. From the case of Barakat Bello, a 19-year-old girl who was gang raped and murdered in Ibadan, Oyo State. Uwa Omozuwa, who was raped inside a church in Bini, Edo State, and subsequently died as a result of the brutal attack. To Ini Umerin, a 26-year-old job-seeking lady who was murdered by a man who had invited her for a job interview in Uyo, Akwa Ibom. Recently, the Nigerian media space was awash with news of the death of a popular gospel singer, Osinachi, who reportedly died after enduring a series of physical assault from her husband. These few instances are just a tiny fraction of the numerous cases of violence that Nigerian women and girls have and continue to experience. But unfortunately, many of these cases are either not reported or underreported, largely due to the cultural and religious sentiments, victimization, and intimidation. Let me know that gender-based violence can manifest in several forms, but the most prevalent ones, especially in Nigeria, are domestic or physical violence, sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, emotional and psychological violence, female genital mutilation, forced early marriage, rape of minors, among other harmful practices against women and girls. Available data show that 3 in 10 Nigerian women have experienced physical violence by age 15. Data also shows that 30% of Nigerian women aged 15 to 49 have experienced sexual abuse. A report conducted by the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development and the United Nations Population Fund with support from the Norwegian government revealed that 28% of Nigerian women between the ages of 25 and 29 have experienced physical violence since 15 years. The cases of GBV were also said to have increased drastically during the COVID-19 lockdown. A United Nations Women report that was released in November 2021 revealed that at least 48% of Nigerian women have experienced one form of violence or the other since the outbreak of the pandemic. The economic effect of the pandemic also forced many women into transactional sex that is also regarded as a form of GBV. These figures reveal an endemic culture of violence against women in Nigeria. It is no surprise then that Nigeria is ranked 118 on the Global Gender Gap Index, which benchmarks national gender gaps on economic, political, education, and health criteria. As it is the case in states across Nigeria, Kwara State is also grappling with rising cases of gender-based violence. I am sure many of us can still remember the sad case of a 300-level student of University of Ilorin, Blessing Olajude, who was raped and killed at her residence in Tanke, Ilorin. Security agencies in the state are constantly overwhelmed with reports of domestic violence against women and cases of parent guardians enslaving and inflicting injuries on their children and wards. Few months ago, the Kwara State Command of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps and the National Human Rights Commission came out to raise alarm over the growing incidence of violence against women and girls in the state. The NSCDC said it receives reports of GBV almost on a daily basis. On its part, the Human Rights Commission said between January and March 2021, it recorded no fewer than 200 cases of domestic violence against women and girls. In recent times, several government institutions and civil society groups have embarked on advocacy programs to draw attention to the cases of GBV in Nigeria and Kwara in particular. But unfortunately, despite their interventions, the cases keep growing, and what is more worrisome and saddening is the fact that many of the perpetrators go unpunished. To this end, we at the Rising Child Foundation felt there is a need to introduce a new approach to the activism against gender-based violence, not only in Kwara, but across the country. It is for this reason that we are today launching the Stamp Out GBV in Kwara project. The project, which is supported by the Global Youth Movement, will cover a series of advocacy programs and action plans towards the prevention and elimination of all forms of violence against women and girls in Kwara. As part of this project, we shall organize a broad-based training for 25 selected young ladies that will be regarded as GBV champions. They will be educated on GBV and its implication on the society, trained on how to use social media, majorly Twitter, to advocate GBV-related issues, and what they can do to curb the spread of GBV in their respective communities. At the end of the training, we will create a Kwara Gender Action Group that will comprise participants at the training. The group will work in local communities across Kwara to create awareness on GBV issues, track and report cases of violence, abuse against women, and advocate for redress for victims and punishment for the offenders. Our GBV champions will also carry out sustained awareness on GBV across senior secondary schools in Kwara State, while creating a pipeline for safe reportage of GBV cases. In addition, we will embark on market drive, organize radio shows, reach out to community and religious leaders and other relevant stakeholders to create awareness on GBV and seek their support and cooperations towards the prevention and elimination of violence against women and girls. To ensure the success of this project, we are humbly soliciting the support of the state and other relevant bodies. We are also open to collaborations with other civil society groups working on GBV issues in Kwara. I know there are a number of them in town, and we are ready to work with you all. These are our recommendations on the prevention and elimination of violence against women in Nigeria. Government and other relevant stakeholders must invest in building the capacity of GBV service providers to meet the increasing demand for support for victims of gender-based violence. Create more support centers where concerned individuals and victims of GBV can report their cases and seek help. This will increase access to life-saving services for the victims. At present, there is a low conviction rate for GBV in Nigeria, and this is sadly contributes to emboldening perpetrators to continue to perpetrate these heinous crimes against women and girls. For instance, Nigeria's Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development recently disclosed that out of the over 5,100 cases of GBV currently in court, only a paltry 16 convictions have been secured. There is therefore a need for our judiciary to prioritize the prosecution of perpetrators of gender-based violence. In this regard, special courts can be created to entertain GBV cases to ensure swift dispensation of justice. Security agencies should handle GBV cases professionally without shaming the victims. Similarly, parents should desist from preventing their abused children from speaking up under the guise of shame. We must strengthen the adoption and implementation of legal frameworks that safeguard and protect women and girls against GBV and provide justice for victims. Creation of registry for GBV perpetrators across local government areas in the country. Religious institutions should condemn every form of gender-based violence and preach against tolerance of gender-based violence. Similarly, religious and community leaders should work on reforming some of our prevalent socio-cultural or traditional norms that aid gender-based violence. Institutions of learning should also have a clear-cut policies against gender-based violence to protect their female members and set up adequate measures and mechanisms for victims to report any incidents of GBV. All organizations, including private establishments, should have anti-GBV policies to protect their female staff and should also establish a pipeline for safe reportage of GBV issues. As part of efforts to prevent and eliminate violence against women and girls in Kwara, we will unveil our well-researched fact sheet on gender-based violence, which can serve as an advocacy tool for any organization or individual interested on the issue of gender-based violence. On a final note, let me state that ending gender-based violence in Kwara and Nigeria at large requires our collective effort. As an individual, do not perpetuate or condone any form of gender-based violence. We should also stop stigmatizing victims of gender-based violence and rather encourage them to speak up and not suffer or die in silence. If you are in a position to effect any form of change that would impact the level of gender-based violence in Nigeria, ensure to use your power. We must all understand that to build an equitable and inclusive society, we must create an environment that adequately protects the rights of women and girls. Once again, I appreciate all our gentlemen of the press for honoring our invitation. We will be counting on your support in this journey to end all forms of violence against women and girls in Kwara. Together, we can stamp out GBV in Kwara. Thank you and God bless.